So when we tell them that we refer X, Y, and Z company for X, Y, and Z reasons, that carries a lot of weight. And so if I'm putting my word behind it and it gets to you and then you drop the ball, guess who they come back to first? They come back to me and they go, hey, that company you referred, I would never refer them again. And like, that's not a conversation that I want to have, because now it dilutes my brand reputation, and that's not something I can put on the line.
This is the Snowball Effect. You're listening to the Marketing Playbook series, presented by the Snowball Effect Podcast. It's growth done right.
Hey, welcome to the Snowball Effect. This is our Marketing Playbook series, and my goal is really simple. I just want to offer some concrete growth strategies that you can use right now, and particularly for movers on this episode. Pay attention, because I've got an awesome guest here today. I've got Fabian Lovato. Fabian, it's great to have you on the podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Todd.
Fabian works at Smart City, where he's a GM in the Dallas area, and they offer a concierge service for people who are looking to move into an apartment complex. Fabian, I'm going to ask you, tell me a little bit about what Smart City does. How close did I get there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at its core, Smart City is a real estate company. So we do business all over Texas. We're in all the major metros in Texas. Then we also have Atlanta, Nashville, Chicago, and Denver as well, with plans to open more cities. But yeah, like I said, at its core, it's a real estate business. We started over a decade ago, specifically in apartment locating. If you've never heard of apartment locating, think about what a traditional realtor does, but helping people find an apartment. So we take all the legwork out of it for the client. They just tell us what they need, where they want to go, what they want to spend, that their dog needs a dog park, et cetera, right? And we go out and we find those options for them, present the options, walk them through the entire process, and don't have to charge them a dime for anything that we do. The properties actually pay us out of their marketing and advertising budget. So kind of fun from that side to offer a service that's real, takes the legwork out of the hard part of finding a space, and we try and get them the best deal while we're doing it as well, and build those relationships across the city. And so that's the core of what the business does. And then they get passed off to my team on the concierge side.
So tell me a little bit about what you do on the concierge side, you and your team there.
Yeah. So basically right after they submit the application, our real estate team puts that into the system. Then they get passed off to my team. And so what my team is really there post-application, pre-move. And so we take care of anything that they need to make that move as smooth as possible. So this is everything from setting up their electricity, their internet, getting their insurance taken care of, right? Renter's insurance, home insurance. And then, of course, moving itself comes into the fold there. So we're referring moving partners. And we also have some smaller ancillary services as well, TV mounting, cleaners, pet insurance, right? An emotional support animal. You might need a letter for that, for the property that you're moving into. And so we really do all those things, guide them in the best direction possible. And once again, like, the goal is to take extra legwork off the client. We all know that moving is stressful. People hate doing it, right? So we're there to kind of aid them in the most stressful thing that they're dealing with in that moment. And like, once again, we don't charge them a dime for anything that we do. Really, the businesses that we refer and the services that we're setting up for them, we earn a commission on that. So we're taking the legwork off of it for the client. So it's a win for them and it's a win for us.
I love it. I'm so glad I asked you to summarize what you did, because you just did that so much more of an articulate way than I was attempting. But that is so. Movers, listen up, because people like Fabian, they connect. They have the ability to connect you with people that are moving at that stressful time, like you were just saying. I'm going to pick your brain about that more in just a second. But first, I want to get to know you just a little bit. And sure. I mean, you've been a friend of Snowball's for a while now, but looking through your LinkedIn and doing a little research, but I've got to know, you working at H-E-B in the grocery industry, what translates from your time there to what you're doing now, where you're managing multiple cities and you're managing teams? What translates? And then I'm curious, what skills just don't translate?
Sure. Well, for all my Texas people that are watching this, they're going to have the affinity for H-E-B that I think that we all share. But I'd say as far as things that do translate, I'm going to say that this is going to sound like a pun because I did, primarily work in dairy for years, but don't cry over spilled milk, right? Um, the aspect of
Everyone's
like, there's,
collectively rolling their eyes, but
yeah,
inside,
exactly.
everyone enjoys a good pun.
But it truly, like if you've ever worked with me closely, one of the things that I say on repeat is to control the controllables. And I think working in an industry where there's so many logistics that are involved to get things delivered, there were so many moments where I'm dealing with customers where we ultimately, like, we can't deliver just because we don't have the product. And so having to overcome that or explain that and understand, kind of their pain and figuring out ways that I could try and accommodate that, or recommending another product that might be similar, or just giving them an update on when we think we're going to have it. But having to control the emotion in the moment while understanding that the exact reason as to why it's not there in that moment was completely out of my control, I think is something that I've carried with me my entire career. There's so many moments where things go wrong, things break, you can't deliver on something for whatever reason, completely out of your control, and you have to take the brunt of it in the moment. And so I think learning to be able to overcome those things in the moment is something that I've taken with me forever, because they happen every single day in every single industry. Like, no one is immune to that. And it's something that I started developing way back when that is still with me today.
I love that. Controlling the controllables. Okay, I can see how that translates. What's a skill you learned that just has no application to your day to day?
Man, it's funny because it was one of my first jobs, so I feel like there's actually a lot of things that I still keep with me today. But on a practical note, probably
class, like you're sitting and you're like, when am I going to use calculus? Okay, when you're at HEB going, when am I going to use this? So what just hasn't quite translated?
Probably learning how to operate a pallet jack. I haven't operated a pallet jack in years.
Are you kidding me? That's one of the most manly things to know. That's a skill at some point in your life. You're going to be so glad that you know how to do that.
Probably.
And you're going to impress dozens of people at the right moment when you know how to operate one of those.
Probably. We had to go through training to do that. And, it's just so funny because in the moment, you're like, this is such an interesting thing to learn. And ever since I left there, I have not operated one again. So maybe at some point.
That's right. Like I said, at some point you're going to be in a bind, and they're going to say, "Who here knows how to operate a pallet jack?" And you're going to step up. So you're not talking about a forklift. You're talking about a pallet jack. I just imagine that behind where the milk goes, in the freezer area. Which, by the way, for us shoppers that have never actually worked at a grocery store, that just seems like a dark mystery wonderland. I have no idea what goes on behind the refrigerator when I reach back. To me, it's just like another world. But now I imagine you and your coworkers having pallet jack races back there. They tell me that's a thing, because I'll just love humanity so much more if that's a thing.
It is for sure a thing. Probably not OSHA approved there, but you have the electrical ones and you have the manual ones, and I can't tell you the amount of times that I have operated a manual one as if it was an old Razor scooter that I was on at the age of 6. So yeah, it's a bit of that for sure, and I can confirm it is a dark, cold place back there. You're from the moment that you clock in to the moment you leave, you're kind of waiting to get out of there and feel some warmth for sure.
Well, for the rest of us, we just see little glimpses of it when we look through, and there's a row of milk that's gone, and we see that as if it's another world. So I've got another question, just because I've got to know. I want to know about something that just really gets you fired up. Like, what do you get up and you just can't, like, what's a passion that you have? And then I need you to turn it on me and try to sell me on why this has to be a passion for me. So what really gets you going?
Yeah. A couple things. I would say professionally, the aspect of providing value to other people. There's a quote, I think it's Zig Ziglar, that's like, you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want, as a byproduct of that. And like, I constantly operate in that way. I'm actually always looking for ways to grow and learn and increase my knowledge to constantly be able to provide value to other people. And it's a philosophy that I live by, and it has not let me down up to this moment. When I can turn things and focus on the other person and what they want out of it, and knowing, also as a byproduct, I'm going to get what I want. Like it is yielded so many fruitful things in my life, both personally and professionally. I'd say on a personal level, like some of the passions of mine are definitely being active. I love being outside. I love hiking. I love running. I love working out. Like I'm a big advocate for mental health and the fact that it translates to how well you take care of your body. I usually make a vision board for myself every single year. And one thing that never leaves that vision board is you only get one body, take care of it. And you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you have to find things that recharge yourself, whether that's going on a walk, going on a run, lifting weights, getting outside. Like I think that we overlook that. I used to be the person that was like, no, I don't need that. And would just, neglect that. And it's funny how focusing on this for probably the last 3 years, it has grown me leaps and bounds in a lot of other areas of my life as well. I believe that how you do the little things is how you do everything. And if you're disciplined in one area of your life, you will be disciplined in other areas of your life. And so you have to find something to start being disciplined in, and you'll watch it bear fruit in a lot of other areas as well that you never thought it would have impacted.
First of all, you quoted Zig Ziglar earlier, which totally took me back. My dad's a salesman, and so when he would travel for different events or different things, sometimes he would take us along. And I just remember tapes while he was driving of Zig Ziglar with that, his Southern accent. I think he would call his wife Red or something like that. He'd be like, well, I told Red, and he would tell these stories. And so anyway, thanks for the nostalgia there. So on a Saturday, if you've got a Saturday all to yourself, what are you spending a Saturday doing?
Yeah, I usually have a slow morning, having some coffee. If my fiance is home, then we'll make breakfast. I love cooking. That's another passion of mine. And so usually we'll whip up some breakfast. But then midday I'm probably hitting a gym session or hitting a run for sure. I usually save my longer runs for Saturdays because there's really not a time limit on it. So if I need to be out there for a longer period of time, I can. And so, but that's what I'm doing on a Saturday. After that, it's probably just a little bit of relaxation or trying to learn a new skill. I've been obsessed with, I know AI is a hot button right now in a lot of worlds, but I've just been obsessed with the power of it recently. So I've been trying to learn a lot more about that, about all the different models, the ways that it could be used to code and build things. I think we're living in a time and space right now where you quite literally can learn anything that you want at the tip of your fingers. And I think that's going to separate a lot of people from the pack of those that are, I've always said that it's never a lack of resources, just a lack of resourcefulness. And so I think for those that are resourceful, I think that you'll see a lot of people over the next few years really elevate their life in ways that maybe they couldn't have before.
Boy, we have so much power at the tip of our fingers. A podcast that I listened to, he just launched a book, and it's all about AI. And like you, I share a passion for that. Well, the name of his book is, and it says everything, "We Are Like Gods." And I mean, it's a little hyperbolic, but
Sure.
But like the power that we have at our fingertips. It's now a question of our imagination and kind of our driving, aspirations more than it is the tools and the resources that we have. So, okay, I've got to pivot into the professional here, and I got to ask you some questions. So, as the GM over concierge service for multiple cities there in Texas, you see a lot of things. You deal with, like you said, people that are moving at a really stressful time. And I want to know, if you're going to refer to them a mover, what is it that a mover can do that really separates them from the pack? What can they do so that someone like you is actually going to, send a referral their way?
Yeah, good question. First and foremost, I think it starts at the moment that we start the relationship with them. So I handle a lot of the business development myself. I initially in our discovery conversations with movers, I like to know a little bit about them. I like to know their history. I like to know the history of the company, why they're in the industry. I want to understand their entire client journey from beginning to end. The moment that I reach out to you, what's the cadence of communication that I receive? What am I receiving? What details am I receiving? How do you communicate with me day of, after? If I have an escalation, how does that get handled? And if a company kind of struggles to answer some of those questions, it's a bit of a red flag for me. One of the things that we are obsessed with as a brand is our client experience. And if I don't believe that you uphold the same standard of client experience when a client gets to you, then we're probably not going to have a successful partnership. And I start off the relationship that way, because I run a team of 10 that is actually having the one-on-one conversations with all of our clients. And whenever we onboard a partner, I usually will ask them to come in and do a session with my team. And I ask them to cover the exact same thing. I want to know a little bit about you. I want to know the company. I want to know what separates you from everyone else, and why you think someone should use your service. And I do that specifically because I want my team to also connect with the brand. I want them to connect with the company that they're referring, because I believe that the referral becomes a lot stronger when you personally relate to the people that are on the receiving end of that lead or that client. Because we have the pre-existing relationship with them. So when we tell them that we refer X, Y, and Z company for X, Y, and Z reasons, that carries a lot of weight. And so if I'm putting my word behind it and it gets to you and then you drop the ball, guess who they come back to first? They come back to me and they go, hey, that company you referred, I would never refer them again. And that's not a conversation that I want to have, because now it dilutes my brand reputation, and that's not something I can put on the line.
That makes a lot of sense. So if somebody were to come to you and say, okay, I run a moving company. I want to start getting referrals from apartment complexes. Maybe it's through, a partnership with someone like you, but maybe it's working with an apartment complex directly. They just want more apartments to refer people their way. What do you tell them?
Yeah, I would say focus on kind of what you can give them. So I've been in multifamily now for over 7 years. And I don't think some people realize all of the things that staff that is in that office might deal with. It's everything from people coming in to tour, it's answering questions at the time of lease, after the lease. It's dealing with the resident that hasn't paid their rent on time. It's dealing with the resident that has the pet that everyone is complaining about, right? It's dealing with cleaning. It's dealing with making sure the property or the units are ready before people move in. There's a lot of little things that get overlooked. But if you just walk in and you see them sitting at a desk, it's easy to have this assumption that they're just sitting at that desk all day long, just waiting for the next person to walk in, when that's probably the furthest thing from the truth. And so I think the first thing that we need to understand is that their whole goal is to convert and to get someone to lease, and then make sure that move-in process is as smoothly as possible and retain them as a resident. So your value add doesn't just need to be that I'm giving you $25 off your move. The value add needs to be that, hey, I'm going to make sure that move-in process is as seamless as it can be. And here's the things that I can offer your clients during their move-in process. So I think there needs to be a little bit of understanding around, if that property is going to refer your business, help them understand why they should refer you. Let them know that you have a strong brand and that you can make that move as seamless as possible. But then also give them something in return as well. Give them a reason to refer you. A discount on the move is usually the first thing that I will typically lean on. I'd say some other creative aspects could also be incentivizing the actual staff. So give the staff a return. Give the staff a little incentive. Pay them $25-$50 or whatever it is per client that they have convert. If that's something that you can set up via a link or a QR code or something like that, develop more of a personal relationship. I think that just dropping off a flyer and just hoping is probably not the best execution strategy. Spend a bit more time getting to know them, spend a bit more time trying to figure out how that relationship could be the most fruitful, and then execute from there.
That's great advice. What mistakes do you see them make? That a mover might make when working with a property or when working with you? What's some common things you see?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake that I see is just not leading with the relationship first. I think that every company kind of lives and dies based on whether they get leads or not, right? And then, of course, if they can convert those leads. But I think just you approaching me asking to send you leads because you're willing to give me a discount is not reason enough for me to refer my clients to you, because of all the work that I've had to do just to acquire that client in the first place. And so just understand that, you have to invest in the relationship first. Try and understand my problems, try and understand what I'm dealing with and maybe the void that I have in my referral process, and then include that as a way that you can try and fill that gap for me, because that's going to make me way more indebted to you than if you were to just come to me and say, hey, this is, I can give you a $25 discount, send me your clients. Like, I need a bit more reason to send them to you.
Well, that relationship that you talked about, and then having, a kickback, like you said, that would go back to them. But really what I love is you took some time to say, really imagine a day in the life of that person. And just because you see them behind a desk doesn't mean that they haven't, dealt with 3 bathroom, issues or a cleaning issue, or, all these, like, they've been putting out flyers all day. What you can offer is a breath of fresh air. Like, finally. So you manage a team of 10 there, and you manage all the different, services that somebody might need at this stressful time when they're moving. How does a mover actually get into that ecosystem that you have? And then how do they stay in the rotation?
Yeah. The biggest thing is I'm very big on not diluting the pool that we have. Because I do believe with, there's a lot of lead aggregators out there that are just, kind of shotgunning a referral and seeing what sticks. And, we'll do the same thing to a degree. Like, every client, we usually will give them 2 to 3 options that they can choose from. But we're putting perspective behind it on, like, why we think that they should start there. And so I think that's the differentiator. But, I'll say, as far as, actually onboarding and being a part of the system, a couple of the things that I need is I need a clean referral journey. That's one of them, right? So shout out to
Tell me what that is.
Yeah. So I need to know that, like, if I refer a client to you, that we can track attribution all the way through to the very end. And so the thing that I don't have is I don't have insight into the mover's actual system, which also goes back to why I need to have a great relationship, because I have to trust that you're reporting accurately on everything that I'm sending you, because I'm relying on you to tell me the number of leads that you receive from me, the number of jobs that converted, and then rightfully what we're owed as far as a referral kickback, if that's the structure of our deal. But I need a clean referral journey to know that, like, whether we are referring you one-on-one in a conversation, or we're putting you on the website, or we're putting you on one of our social media channels, I need to know that whatever route that client takes to find you, if they found you through the power of our brand, that is something that we can accurately and cleanly convert on, and that the client knows what they need to do the moment that they visit your site or form or whatever it is. I need a clean way to be able to do that.
That makes a lot of sense, that transparency and that attribution. I'm imagining that you see a lot of things in your day-to-day, and you see some things that movers do that you're just like, this is somebody that understands. And then there's probably some things where you're just like, just knock it off. This drives us crazy. This may be a blind spot for movers, but stop doing that. What do movers need to start doing? And what do they need to stop doing if they want properties to refer people over to?
I would say start, I've kind of said this a little bit, but just be like really clear on what you have to offer and the value to like whoever you're partnering with. I'd say the other thing is like, please make sure that your communication with the clients is very clean and very clear. I think that, I go back to the stressfulness of this time and the fact that there's people that have never hired movers before, and they need to know that you're going to deliver on the day of, and that doesn't start on the day of. It starts the moment that they reach out to your company. So know that they need clear communication from the moment that they reach out to the moment that the job is done, and maybe a little check-in in between, and I know that's a lot to ask from an infrastructure perspective, but I think it makes all the difference. There's naturally going to be a bit of anxiety in this process, and I think the best way to overcome an objection is before it ever happens. So just be proactive in your communication. It also helps us as well. There's moments where we have clients come to us and they'll say like, hey, I haven't heard an update on this. Like, can you help? And so it's like, hey, yeah, absolutely, right? And so we might escalate that to the contact that we have to try and get an answer for the client. But I'm thinking, what if they didn't have us? What if they didn't have us there to try and do that? And they're just out there guessing, or maybe they're calling the company line, whatever. But once again, like if you would have just been proactive in it, I think it would have helped a lot.
That's so true. I mean, just those moments where they're unsure and they haven't heard back. Those are moments where they start inventing boogeymen and they start imagining things, right? But if you're just intentional with that communication and over communicate, then you just eliminate the need for them to invent problems in their head or assume the word. So what else would you say that people need to start or stop doing?
I would say the only other one is just making sure that you have a clear follow-up cadence between the time the job is quoted and the time the job is booked. This is a conversation that I've shockingly had to have multiple times, where I talk with a mover and I will ask them like, hey, if a client does reach out, what is your follow-up cadence past that point? How often are you calling them? How often are you texting them or emailing them or whatever it is? And it has shocked me the amount of times that I've had people say like, oh, we follow up with them 2 times, 3 times, and then that's it. And that baffles me as someone that's been in sales for a long time, because we know that statistically most people don't make a decision until after the 8th follow-up. But I think about moving specifically, and the thing that we know, and like the necessary evil, I guess, is the fact that people shop around. Like people get multiple quotes. That is not like anything that's abnormal. And so if we know that's happening, I think the way that you win is by staying relevant and like being the one that's there when they're ready to make the decision, whenever that is. But if you're not following up, then you just shot yourself in the foot and you never gave yourself a chance to try and win that job. And so the reason I have to have that conversation is because I referred the lead to you. And so you just let my lead go to waste. And which then also does impact me on the back end, because if you could have converted that job, that's also a revenue share back to us, which goes back to the whole trust thing and everything else that I've talked about up to this point. Is I have to know that you're doing your due diligence as well the moment that my client gets to you.
This question I wasn't planning on asking you, but you mentioned earlier that you've been toying with AI. I've got to know, Fabian, what's something cool that you've done with AI recently?
Sure. I think some of the things is one, I kind of started a bit of a weekend project. And so I have this struggle, and I know there's probably other people that have this struggle, where it seems like keeping up with friends is harder and harder to do as an adult because we're all busy. We all naturally think we're busier than what we are. And so I built just a little app that allows you to create an event and propose 4 different times. You send it to your friends can vote on the time, and then you lock the time in and create a calendar invite. Kind of like Calendly, but it's for friends, it's for different types of events, and you can propose multiple times. And so there's not an aspect of like, oh, that time doesn't work for me. It's like, okay, we'll pick the one that does. And when you get group consensus, then you can kind of lock it in. And so everyone feels a bit more indebted to be able to carry that out. And so, that one was just kind of for the fun of it.
Are you vibe coding this like in Lovable, or are you hammering this out on Claude Code? Like, how are you creating this?
Yeah, and so I've done a combination. A lot of the front end stuff, like definitely using Lovable for that. Back end stuff, Supabase, and just backing it all up to GitHub, and then using Claude Code for any adjustments that need to be made after that. And so, it's just been fun to do that. I'd say some other things that I've been working on. One of the ideas that I have is I think that the home services industry specifically is very antiquated in a lot of the ways that it follows up. It's a lot of call and text. It's a lot of call and email, I should say. And I think, my suspicion, this is just my gut, we have a whole generation that is about to start moving that hates phone calls and doesn't check their email. And I think that the Smart City as a whole, as a company, and my whole team, almost 90% of our conversation is over text. And I think that there's a wave that we're going to have to figure out text follow-up in a very tasteful way. And so one of the other things that I've been working on is, maybe creating a bit of a automated text follow-up that movers can just lay on top of their system. So it doesn't necessarily negate the fact that you can still call and email, but just the idea that, like, hey, you could just loop in this, and then once the quote gets sent, from that moment we have an automated 7 text follow-up that's going to go out. If you book it some other way, we'll just opt out of the text journey. But if they do reply to the text journey, then now there's a hot notification that's sent to the team, and they just call on it and they act on it from there, or they can pick up the text conversation and get the job fully booked. But I think that fundamentally this industry is going to have to evolve in the way that it communicates with people. And I don't think that we can use this is just the way it's always been for maybe, as long as we might think we can.
I'm detecting something about you, Fabian. You don't do anything, halfway. Like, I asked you if you're doing some AI stuff, and you're like, I'm looking up some recipes, or I'm asking it. You're like, no, I've built some tools that solve real problems between friends and I when we're trying to coordinate. And then this is something I wish my industry had, so I'm building it. So that's awesome. When you said you were passionate about AI, you weren't kidding. That's awesome. I love to see that.
Yeah. So, I think it's like I said. There's the only limit is your imagination at this point, and. It's the interesting thing, I think, is with a lot of this is you can build anything. It's the distribution that's the hard part. And I think that's where a lot of people are, if they get stumped on this, that's where it's going to happen. Because I think distribution is what actually separates the people that just have the ideas and the people that are actually doing something, is because you have to figure out the correct journey to do that, and you're probably going to run into some problems along the way.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense, because we've got so many tools, we can create whatever we want, but actually getting other people to bite on it is a whole nother animal. And so that distribution there, that actually makes a lot of sense. I love it. This has been so fun to talk, Fabian, like at a personal level, professional level, and then some of the cool hobbies and some of the cool things that you're building. That's just so much fun. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. This has been an awesome conversation. If people want to reach out and they want to pick your brain and say, what are some of the blind spots that our business might have that we might not know, or they want to pick your brain about a cool AI thing you've got coming, or how do I get that discipline that you've got that it could translate to all different areas of my life? If they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm active on most social media channels. Facebook and Instagram are probably my 2 primary ones. Professionally, LinkedIn, active on LinkedIn. That's been something, going back to the discipline conversation, it's been something that I've been trying to do consistently this year that I have never done in the past. And then my email as well. So my email is just going to be F, like Fabian, my first name, and then Lovato, my last name, at smartcitylocating.com. And so I could be reached there for if there's anyone that's even thinking about partnerships or just wants to have a conversation around partnerships, and maybe how they could do that. I'm open to it. We're going to be expanding into multiple cities across the country probably in the next few years. So there will probably be some additional relationships that I need to make sure that this is successful long term.
Fabian, it has been awesome to talk with you. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining our podcast today. Sure appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, Todd. Thank you so much for having me. Look forward to more conversations in the future.
I love it. And for everybody who joined, thanks for joining the Snowball Effect. This is our marketing playbook series, and we'll see you next time.